The Prime Minister wrapping up talks in China. Here are the latest on the Bahamas Air pilots negotiations. Plus, a woman shares her incredible experience doing majority rule 48 years ago. The Bahamas Tonight starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Everyday.
Prime Minister the Right Honorable Perry Christie and his delegation hailing the mission to the Far East a huge success. Good evening, everyone. I'm Charisma Robinson. The nation's chief welcomed in grand style by Shanghai's mayor and his government after holding successful talks in Beijing with both the president and premier. Clint Watson tells us tonight that the new initiative is another example of private and public sector partnership.
And we think we have their attention.
The government and executives at Bahamas are optimistic that their partnership in China for new airlift and investment opportunities will have significant returns.
And having the Prime Minister here and having invited the private sector to come with him to tell the story, the public relations effort we have now in China, the publicity we've had this week in China is immeasurable. And so we really couldn't do it without the Prime Minister.
The fact that I met with the President of China, the Premier of China, the Mayor of Shanghai, all major political personalities who have given their support to the Bahamas, I think it's an important fact. And I agree with Mr. Ismailian. The public relations that we have, I think, developed during this trip is immeasurable, and we really couldn't pay for it when we think about it, because we know as we leave here today, we know now that people are aware, the movers and shakers are aware.
On Sunday, the delegation met with executives of Shanghai's largest airline and hotel management company, Jingjiang International Holdings, as well as China Eastern Airlines.
Well, as Bahamas expands, we're always looking for new opportunities. First of all, Jingjiang is the largest travel agent and tour operator out of the Shanghai market, and the Shanghai market's an important market for us. China Eastern Airways is the largest airline out of this market. And so the combination of these two companies for us today to be able to tell the Bahamas story, to tell the Bahamas story, and work with our partner hotels in the Bahamas, work with Atlantis to develop the Bahamas as a great destination for tourism is very positive.
Bahamas is the largest single investment in the Western Hemisphere, according to Sarkis Ismailian. Prime Minister Christie was particularly impressed with the Jingjiang Group and feels they would be an excellent partner for the Bahamas.
They have bought major interests, hotel interests in France, major hotel interests in the United States of America. And when I hear people talking about whether or not China Construction should have bought the Hilton Hotel, we're talking about corporate groups that own thousands of hotels around the world originating in this country. And we believe they are excellent investors. We know that 100 million tourists come out of China now across the world and the globe. We know 2 million go into the United States of America, and only about 1,000 have come, high-end people, but they've come. We now know that we must make a big jump forward. And so all of the efforts that we were making this week are calculated to ensure that Chinese tourists who spend a lot of money, who travel all over the world, will now see the advantage of coming to the Bahamas.
Prime Minister Christie has said his efforts have been so intense because a country the size of the Bahamas, with the potential of the Bahamas and the proximity of the Bahamas, should not have the high unemployment of young people at 20%. He's hoping that all of these efforts will, at the end of the day, produce new jobs for young people. In Shanghai, China, Clint Watson, ZNS Network News.
Well, thanks a lot, Clint. The country's first traffic fatality for the year was recorded today. Authorities confirming that a man died following an accident in southwestern New Providence sometime after 6 o'clock this morning. Charles Fisher reports tonight that police are following several clues.
When our news team arrived on Carmichael Road Monday morning, the traffic fatality victim's body had already been removed. However, traffic police officers were busy combing the scene. Officer in charge of the Police Traffic Division, Superintendent Craig Stubbs, confirmed responding to a call shortly after 6 about a person lying on the Carmichael Road corridor.
We met an adult male lying lifeless in the streets with apparently wounds to the head, back and hands area. EMS would have came on scene and they did a check of that male and they found that he had expired. At this present time, we are still trying to conclude what transpired. Vehicle never remained on scene. We are asking persons who would have been involved or who might have seen or heard anything. At this time, please come forward to the traffic department.
But traffic police officers believe the fatality may have actually occurred west of this area, as they saw blood marks, a shoe and a hat near the road not far from the Carmichael Road Detention Center.
The initial scene of this accident occurred at the Golden Isles Road, Carmichael Road Junction, and the body would have came at rest at the Alexandria Avenue and Carmichael Road near Scotiabank. So it was quite a distance the body would have traveled on that vehicle. We noticed that there were a lot of vehicles commuting, the early morning commuters and the early morning joggers. They might have seen or they might have heard something. We are appealing to them to come forward, contact the police traffic department or call the 919 emergency number and see how best we can conclude or bring this matter to a conclusion.
Police are now determining if both scenes are connected and which spot the victim actually met his demise.
There are a lot of mitigating factors that would have caused the body to travel on the vehicle to the resting point. Speed might have been a factor, or the vehicle itself. He might have been resting on the vehicle itself prior to his body coming to rest.
Now, we were told family members of the deceased were on the scene. However, police are withholding the victim's identification until an official notification of next of kin. For the ZNS News Network, I'm Charles Fisher.
The results from a recent labor force survey are in from the Department of Statistics. The survey, which covered a 6-month period, illustrates that the national labor force now totals 201,040 people. That's an increase of 1.8% since the last survey was conducted in May 2014. There was an increase in both the number of employed and unemployed people. However, the growth in the number of unemployed people exceeded that of the employed. Now, the unemployment rate here in New Providence is 16% and 18.6% in Grand Bahama. The unemployment figures rose from 14.3% in May to 15.7% in New Providence. The survey also indicates that the unemployment rate for youth, those between 15 and 24 years, is 31%. This continues to be considerably higher than any other age group. Additionally, the number of discouraged workers decreased from 4,880 in May to 4,560 in November. Well, last year, a number of unions had disputes and turned up the heat, leaving members of the public at a disadvantage. However, a number of those disputes were settled, and Labor Minister the Honorable Shane Gibson says his open door policy remains.
As far as I know, there's no really egregious outstanding issue. You always have issues outstanding with different labor unions. As long as you have workers, the fact that you put a conciliation process in place, it tells you that you anticipate you'll always have disagreements and you'll have opposing views. And so generally speaking, I believe that in labor front things are well, relatively, and any day that can change because something can happen, somebody can do something on the job. You can have a management who react the wrong way. You can have employees who don't produce, and so you have differences of positions. And so, but as it stands right now, we feel pretty good that everything is relatively smooth, but that could change tomorrow.
Negotiations continue with members of the Bahamas Airline Pilots Association, Bahamas Air Management, and labor officials. This follows that massive sick-out during the Christmas holiday, which cost the airline to lose more than $1 million. Several pilots were also let go following the industrial action, with management saying several challenges with the Dash 8 fleet led to the cutbacks. Well, as talks progress, Labor Minister Shane Gibson says he is satisfied with the way discussions are going, saying establishing a clear line of communication was key.
Really, we only stepped in to try and see how we can conciliate the process. They had reached a stalemate with management and trying to have the negotiations concluded. And so management and the board at Bahamas, they agreed that we would sit down and see how we can work out an amicable resolution. And like I said, so far we've been pretty successful with that. I don't think there's any strained relationship going on now. I think both sides understands one another. I think that the pilots understood exactly what it is they did, the implications, the repercussions. We spoke about it. And at the end of the day, after we would have completed the negotiations process, then we would release all the information to the public. But at this point in time, it wouldn't serve any useful purpose to begin debating or negotiating in the public, because I think the meetings are going well. And I suspect within the next couple of days or a week or so, we should have everything sorted out.
The Appeals Committee of the Bahamas Union of Teachers was selected last week to decide whether or not the suspension of President Belinda Wilson and the union's treasurer Lorraine Knowles should be overturned. They had until midnight to make that decision. While Wilson was suspended for 6 months for alleged procedural violations, and Knowles was suspended for 4 months for similar violations, the Union Secretary General John Musgrove gave an update on the appeals process.
Well, up to last night, at midnight last night, I have not received any report, a written report from the Appeals Committee. The deadline was clear to them. They were instructed in the meeting when they were elected, and they were instructed in writing that according to the Constitution, from the day I received the repeal from President Wilson and Lorraine Knowles, it would have taken 21 days to give me a written report. I received the repeal from both the President and Lorraine Knowles on the 19th of December. The 21 days would have expired on the Friday past. However, they were given until the Sunday midnight to have the report written in, and up to now, I've not got the report. The Executive Committee will meet tomorrow at 9, and we will decide, according to the Constitution, where we go from there.
Coming up here, more about the journey to majority rule. And today marks the 5th year since that catastrophic earthquake hit Haiti.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Lux Men's Warehouse.